In this video, we're going to talk about how to calculate the median, the first quartile, the third quartile, and the interquartile range of a given data set. So the very first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that your data set is ordered from least to greatest. So we want the smallest number over here on the left and the greatest number over here on the right. If they are not in order, you will get the wrong answer for basically all of these numbers. So take 1 second at the beginning of your problem and make sure that they're ordered from least to greatest. So first thing that we have to do is we kind of have to start with the median. I like to systematically work my way towards the middle. So I'm going to kind of get rid of the number on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So I'm getting rid of the least number and the greatest number. So the least number, the greatest number, the least number, the greatest number, the least number, the greatest number. Now, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to be left with one number in the middle or I'm going to be left with two numbers in the middle. So in this case, I've got one number left in the middle, in which case my median is just 8. So my median over here, median is equal to 8. There's nothing else that I need to do. If I instead had ended up with two numbers in the middle, then I would have to find the average or the mean of these two numbers. So I would just add them up, divide by 2. However, in this case, I only ended up with one number. So there's my median. Next, I'm going to find the first quartile and the third quartile. And that process looks really similar to finding the median. I'm essentially going to break my data set into a lower half and the upper half. Now, one thing I want to talk about here is where does this piece go? Where does 8 go? Because if I put 8 in the lower half of my data set, well, then the lower half is greater than the upper half. There's more data values over here in this set of numbers than there is over here. And the same thing's also going to happen if I put it in the upper half. So if you end up with a situation like this, which means we have an odd number of data values, I'm basically going to ignore 8 for the rest of my problem. I don't really care so much about it for the first quartile or the third quartile. I'm going to be looking at this group of numbers right here, and I'm going to be looking at this group of numbers right here. So we'll start with the lower half, and essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to be looking at this set of numbers, 3, 5, 5, 3, 5, 5, 5, yes. And I'm going to find the median of this set of numbers. So I'm going to basically do the same thing that I just did. So I'm going to get rid of the lowest number and the greatest number. Now in this case, I ended up with two numbers in the middle, which are 5 and 5. So to find the first quartile, or Q1, I'm going to take 5 plus 5 and then divide that by 2. So that's going to end up being 10 over 2, which is just 5. So there's my first quartile. And then I will do the exact same thing with the upper half of my data set to find the third quartile. So I'm going to get rid of the least number, the greatest number, and in this case, again, I'm left with two numbers in the middle, 11 and 14. So for the third quartile, or Q3, I'm going to take 11 plus 14, divide it by 2. So that should be 25 over 2, which is 12.5. So there is my median, my first quartile, and my third quartile. The last thing that we're asked to do for this problem is to find the interquartile range, or the IQR. If I want to find that, we do have a very small short formula to find the IQR. It is simply just the third quartile minus the first quartile, so Q3 minus Q1. So our Q3 was 12.5. Our Q1 was 5. I'm just going to go ahead and subtract those two. I should end up with 7.5 for my IQR. So this is another way to measure center when we're talking about median, and then IQR is another way to talk about spread as opposed to something like mean and standard deviation. These are an alternative to that. And there's something that we're going to be using quite a bit in the next page of Canvas, where we're going to talk about how to create box plots, which is a different way to present numerical data.